Hey guys, Vinnie Mirchandani. Great to have Joseph Rajadurai. He's part of Cognizant. He heads Cognizant's travel and hospitality practice. He's calling in from Dallas, Texas. Joseph, welcome. Tell us a little bit about yourself. Sounds like Texas has done a pretty good job managing this COVID crisis. So tell us a little bit about yourself and the Cognizant practice.
Yeah, Vinnie, thanks for having me on. Great to be here. I lead Cognizant's travel and hospitality vertical. And travel and hospitality for Cognizant is really, we serve the entire travel ecosystem. You can look at it from airlines, hotels, cruise lines, rental cars, and then all the way to OTAs as well. So we serve the search through booking and the actual travel. We serve the entire ecosystem, and Cognizant overall is a services player, and we really serve our clients in the travel and hospitality segment across the full gamut of Cognizant services, starting from envisioning the digital capabilities of the digital channels of our clients, and then we help them really think through their business operations, going on to looking at their tech stack. So we are a full service provider across the travel industry ecosystem.
So, Joseph, airlines, cruise lines, hotels, how did you get stuck with that lot? This is not a great place to be, right? Or is that just the general perception? What?
I think, yeah, go ahead, sorry.
No, you would think travel is going to be dead for a while, but that's just a general perception, right? So what are you seeing?
Yeah, no, I think, that's kind of what you get the sense when you read the press and all the news stories that come out of it. Looking at my clients closely, I have a little bit more of a nuanced view on it, because I think, yes, there is a shock to the system because, as all our clients report in their news conferences, there's a big loss of revenue that they're encountering. But there's a lot of interesting changes that are happening. So I look at this as a temporary pullback that they are hit with for a few months. And then we get to a point where we really are recovering, and we look at growth coming back, and then the business begins to scale again.
Let's go into each of those segments. Talk about each of the segments. So let's talk about airlines first, then cruise lines, and because you have a pretty broad portfolio there.
Yeah, I do. So I'll start with the one which is probably the one which has the quickest turn in circumstances. I'll start with restaurants, and then I'll kind of work my way through those who are still kind of in the recovery and response type of a situation. So restaurants are really have pivoted greatly, because when we started, I think as the restrictions came in, you saw that people couldn't go in, couldn't dine in. So it was a little bit unnerving to start with. But there's a lot of optimism that has crept in, because curbside to go, delivery, those orders have really spiked. So if you look at every restaurant, I think Chipotle recently reported their numbers, online orders spiked. You take anybody else like Papa John's reported very good numbers on their same store sales, because online ordering, if you have a digital channel and you have invested in your digital channel, it's really turned that business around quite a bit. Overall numbers, still there is a gap, but we see a good positive momentum coming through online ordering, delivery, and curbside. So these three things are really driving a lot of momentum in that business. If we come into the likes of...
I had a question on restaurants. So my county is allowing 25% to open, and some owners are saying that is just not profitable enough. Where do you see a break even where restaurants will say, okay, we understand the need to distance, but I need to have at least this percentage? Do you have a number?
I don't think I have a number per se on when it will be profitable. I think it depends on, it's a big spectrum of different types of restaurants. So if you are a single restaurant owner running a restaurant, it is a difficult type of a situation, because you have to manage your staffing levels corresponding to how many people you can get through, and you might not have the greatest delivery, online ordering type capability. So there is a little bit of a struggle from that perspective. But if you project it outward to guys who have more than a few restaurants or who have a good online program, they have an ability to respond through this situation. Eventually, dine-in has to recover for them to really get back to their revenue size. But it's more of it's better than how it's portrayed as like the doomsday scenario. It's not, because I think they're seeing new trends pick up, and these curbsides and delivery are trends which are more secular than what they appear to be. They are not just transitional. It's been around for a while. They're getting accelerated much more through this pandemic-related disruption.
Okay, go on to the next sector.
So I think when we look at the other sectors, when it comes to hotels, hotels are beginning to see a little bit of a uptick in terms of local traffic. I mean, I'll just qualify it a little bit. They are not like really killing it in terms of occupancy, but clearly they are beginning to see some green shoots, like the countries which have been open for a while. I think there was a report that there's only one property of Hyatt which is still closed in China. They've reopened all their properties. There was even a sold out property in China over the May holiday that they had. So you're beginning to see a little bit of an uptick. I think South Korea is seeing a lot of increase in occupancy. So we are seeing some momentum there. And even within the US, I think as the beaches got opened, there is enough of a pent-up demand where people who can drive for a couple of hours or 3 hours, they get out and they stay in hotels. So there is more of that type of optimism and energy that is there in the ecosystem.
Do you have any insight into Memorial Day? Because that's usually a travel weekend. Any insight into that? That's 2 weeks.
No, I think at the moment the focus really is on the driving traffic. It's not so much the flying traffic. Nobody really expects the people will get on a plane and go to a destination as soon as Memorial Day. I think that's more of the schedules are coming out, and the airlines are putting up new schedules for May and June. They have published their May-June schedule. So as the schedules pick up and countries open up and locations open up, that should come more towards June, July, I would think. Right now, it's mostly local driving trips, a quick weekend trip. That type of stuff is picking up. And beaches have opened in North America, as parks open up in North America. They are seeing some uptick on that on a pretty much on a weekly basis. As things open up, they see a little bit of pickup on that front.
And will they be restricted also in terms of capacity? Or
so I don't see hotels being as restricted, because I think the thing is hotels are really trying to make a difference in terms of launching cleanliness councils, safety and health councils, where they can co-opt their franchisees and get them into really thinking about how should they be cleaning the hotel, what type of messaging do they give to their potential guests, so they can get the word out that they've got a better cleaning protocol in place, that they are going to minimize restaurant seating. So like if you're in a breakfast area, can you seat people apart farther than how they would normally be seated? Can you minimize the time people spend on a check-in desk? Because those are high contact areas in a hotel and potentially places where social distancing can be an issue. So you see some activity and initiatives that they have launched to really make that happen. On the airline side, there are more dramatic calls that have been made. So when you look at airlines, I think Delta announced a plan that till June end, they would not really book a middle seat. So that's a pretty dramatic plan. And there are others who are considering that. So I see them being more purposeful in pushing that social distancing angle. On the hotel side, it's really more about the check-in area and the common areas where they can minimize the crowding. But at this time, they are still adapting it to form to try and calibrate it to how the traffic is picking up and then adjusting as they go along.
But the airlines probably have the biggest image issue, right? I mean, trying to get passengers comfortable about going into a cramped space is going to be a big psychological barrier.
I think, what I have seen, the positive thing is they were one of the earliest to do outreach to their core customers. So airlines, the loyalty programs are pretty big and there are a lot of loyal flyers. So they have done a lot of outreach in educating them on how healthy the environment is. So I mean, I fly a couple of airlines pretty regularly, and I've got letters from both of them where they outline their cleaning practices and what type of turnaround practices. And most recently, I mean, you would have seen that Americans started handing out masks to everybody. Delta, like I said, is booking, leaving the middle seat open. And so there is that type of focus, and I think they're really trying to communicate that out, definitely to their core customers, who are a pretty critical constituent to return back and help them come back to health. So I really see them as taking it positively, getting the message out, putting in these cleaning protocols, and that really can make a difference. And that's true for both hotels and airlines, because less so a big issue for hotels, but definitely from an airline perspective, that communication matters quite a bit.
And then the final sector, cruise lines.
So cruise lines right now, they are largely parked quite a bit because there's a no sail order, I think, till August. But cruise has, there's a lot of dynamism in that business, and it surprises me like anything, because recently, there's a subsidiary of American Express Travel which does cruise planning. They reported they saw a 600% increase in booking, and this is after August, for sailings after August. And this is the surprising data point, which is probably underreported. August 2020 bookings are higher than August 2019 bookings.
Oh my God.
Yeah, so it's not what you would make out just listening to the bad news, but there's a lot of customers or guests who are eager to go on their holiday. And because of the lockdowns, I think there is a fair bit of pent-up demand, which is likely to come out. So I think there are some interesting strokes like that. But right now, they aren't really sailing. So there is not a whole lot of new things that we are seeing there. But definitely, they are anticipating a good recovery once the no-sail order is lifted.
And hasn't Carnival offered to turn some into hospitals, and aren't some of them pivoting?
That's true. Yeah.
And
that's, see, that whole, engaging the community is something they've all done very actively. Carnival has done that. It's offered its ships. Many of the hotels in in hotspots for the virus have given rooms for medical workers, have discounted prices there, helped people quarantine. So that whole community impacting, and the airlines likewise have really been very active in flying medical equipment around. They've been flying all the medical personnel, medical equipment, importing medical cargo from outside the country. So there's been a lot of community orientation and serving the larger cause of the fight against the virus, which all of these companies have really stepped up.
Usually when it's the darkest, you get a lot of necessity. Necessity is a mother of invention, right? What innovations are you starting to see, or are people still focused more on retrenchment? Are you starting to see them say, we see an opportunity to improve here, we see an opportunity to innovate there? What are you seeing in your customer base?
So it's definitely, the initial step has been really about trying to cut costs, get the demand and the cost structure recalibrated, and so conserving cash. So a lot of the initial 2-3 months of activity have been focused on it. But now I see a little bit more focus on, for example, health and safety is a big priority right now. So if you want to open up a facility, you're going to focus on how do I ensure that people coming in, I can give them confidence, but I need a systemic support around maybe measuring temperature or measuring hand washing protocols. Is social distancing being maintained on my floor? These are things which are being thought through from a systemic perspective. Because I told you the general framework, they're getting messages out on cleanliness, but now you've got to follow through on those messages and being able to deliver on them. So there is activity around that. There's definitely talk around how do we minimize.
Is technology helping with that? Distancing, sanitation?
Yeah. So there's a lot of momentum on technologies which can help with that. Because there are thermal cameras which can measure temperatures at the individual level. Then you have video equipment that can look at social distancing. You can put them on a platform and you can you can get people to understand, and then put a sensor on a wrist which can track hand washing protocol being maintained. Then you have HVAC sensors which can basically judge air quality, create venting frequencies. So this is pretty neat stuff that's coming together. And in fact, Cognizant ourselves, we have a platform that we just launched a couple of days ago publicly. So there is a lot of activity that is there in this space, which can help tie the a property owner or any kind of physical space, if you want to track and maintain and monitor the workforce, and also guests to track and trace and monitor the performance within the space. There is good momentum from a technology perspective.
So talking about technology, most CIOs I've talked to have said their cloud applications really help the transition to work from home. Their on-premise, VPN tunneling and all that actually were a hassle. What have you found in your sector? Because airlines tend to be pretty on-premise oriented, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, I think that this is a journey they've been on for a while. I think this migration to cloud is not something new. Core systems in the industry has been on a journey for a while, where some have migrated to completely cloud-based systems. Many still have a hybrid environment, so where they have some systems like the core reservations might be still on a mainframe, but there are other systems which are on cloud-based platforms. So I think it's a journey. It'll continue where they'll do more and more work on the cloud. If you look at cloud transformation, one of my opinion is this will accelerate adoption of the cloud, because people will want the variability that cloud provides. So wherever having an on-prem infrastructure creates a big fixed cost type of a situation, the push to migrate that to cloud so they can have more variability. Because right now their revenues have shrunk, so they'll need to recalibrate the cost structure down. So if that gives them a variability which they can tie as their revenue scales, those things will see more attention in the upcoming months, where they'll make the push to modernize some of these applications into a cloud-based format.
Have you seen things like Micro's more interest in tools like that, or still too early?
Actually, we work pretty closely with Oracle Hospitality, and they've been really getting the PMS on the cloud program stood up quite actively. And so I would really think about the property cloud solutions, meaning today property systems sit on the on-prem largely. That's the case across the industry. There are a few small chains, and then there are some specialized chains which have cloud-based solutions, but the broad pool of properties tend to have on-prem legacy PMS. That is really, it's just a projection from my perspective. I would really think that we should see more focus on migrating that to the cloud, because it gives them a lot more flexibility, and it also enables properties to come on and go off the system much more seamlessly. So I really think that'll accelerate, because it also, they have to look at things like, how do I create direct room experiences? So if I get out of a cab, can I walk straight to my room with the key, digital key? That type of stuff requires you a system which is more scalable and can integrate better between lock systems, property systems, reservation systems. So that integration angle requires you to get above the property and not be stuck at the property level. So I really think that piece will move forward more aggressively.
What other technologies do you see next 2-3 years as gaining momentum, or at least reshuffling of funds, right? They'll retrench in some areas, but then they'll end up, where do you see the money going?
I think there is going to be a couple of places where I really think there will be bigger bets being made. Data, we've talked about data for a long time. I think data will continue to get investments, because there was a big push in the industry the last couple of years to really modernize data platforms. They didn't really finish the job. It was started in many places, but there is an opportunity here where they have to use data for better decision making, and they'll soon find the limitations of siloed data lying across the enterprise. So the data modernization element, where you put them onto a cloud, you connect the data.
Mostly customer data. What is the biggest data?
It's customer data, operational data, linking customer data to operational data, so you can make better decisions on demand projection, better decision on pricing, managing staffing levels. So if you look at the recalibration they're trying to do, there are a lot of things they could optimize better if they can connect this demand and cost factors together, which is today in silos and has operated in silos for a very long time. I think that integration will get a push, is my view. So we should see more action on that front. Customer engagement, personalized customer engagement technologies, being able to look at loyalty systems through a better lens to figure out, who are the right targets for what messages. I think that personalization should see more focus. I also think that operational efficiency will be a big, big priority. People are really going to focus on wherever I can variabilize or variabilize my cost structure, I'm going to put focus on it. So look at things like call centers, look at things like baggage tracking centers. These are big expenses for an airline or even a cruise line. So these areas you would see more focus on automation coming in and really reducing the cost structure from fixed costs to more variable costs. So these are areas I think will see more traction in the coming months and years.
So you've been in the industry a long time. What are the biggest surprises in this shock? I mean, there have been other shocks, right? Biggest surprise here, and what are some of the important lessons from this time around?
So I think the lesson I would say is, people have been talking about work from home for a long time. Nobody really expected it to work this seamlessly. So clearly, a lot of employers are surprised at the transition to work from home and the effectiveness of work from home. And that, I think, is a good lesson that a lot of us have learned. I mean, I was not a big believer in work from home personally before, but now I have learned to adapt, and I've seen my teams adapt. And in fact, in some cases, you see productivity go up because people don't have to deal with the commute and things like that. That's one lesson. I think the other thing I'm surprised is that a lot of things we have talked about for a long time, there is more momentum. This whole self-service, doing things in more self-service, putting automation in play. These are things which are getting faster traction than they did. Online for restaurants, the thing we've talked about endlessly, it never got any attention, but COVID has really put a lot of focus on it. And so things like that, digital transformation as a catch-all term, I think that will see more traction in the days ahead because this has brought that to the table. In terms of surprises, I think, I covered some of this at the beginning. People are resilient. Nobody would have expected reading the news a month ago that anything will happen, but there are a lot of positive shoots that we see. So I'm of the opinion that things will turn around. We will see positive momentum come back to the business, and there is pent-up demand, clearly. Maybe initially it'll be just domestic pent-up demand, and as the borders open up, we should see people connect, because really there is that innate desire to connect with people and to engage and explore. I think that's almost human. So I really think that things will turn around, and the data that I see sounds encouraging from that perspective.
For Joseph, it would be nice to start to travel again. But let's talk about your business. I mean, your business is almost entirely driven by travel, right? How have you adjusted?
It was a bit of an adjustment because I was used to traveling at least a few days every week, right? So, but I think, it takes a little bit of practice. So right now we are used to doing all our critical meetings, working from home via video, and we're making progress. There is a larger pullback in terms of demand environment because my clients are pulling back on their spending right now. But I think when I look at how we are reacting and interacting with them, even proposals, for example, if you want to present a proposal, what would have cost a physical meeting in the past, Now we basically actually nicely interact via video. We do all of that via video. So I think we have had lots of practice over the last 8 weeks. So it's kind of become the new normal that we are well adapted to this environment, and we really figured this working from home arrangement to make it work really.
It's not just your willingness to travel, it's also the customer's willingness, their legal ability to allow you to enter, right? So that's going to be probably an even bigger hurdle. In terms of implementations, actually doing the job, are you comfortable you'll be able to do it remotely? You said your productivity has gone up, at least some people. Is that more on proposals or on actually supporting clients?
So right now, all the development support work that we do, everything is work from home now. So there is nobody who's really on site at a client, right? Or at least in my industry, there is nobody, because all my clients' offices are closed and everybody is working from home. And that includes development support, project work, starting a project, doing requirements discussions. All of that is being done via video, and it's working quite well.
Well, it's encouraging what you're saying. I would have expected a much more pessimistic viewpoint. So I hope you're right, because it'd be nice to be able to get on the road at least once in a while. Like I say, at least domestically. I don't know about international. I think international might be a little more challenging, but thank you for your input. Thanks a lot. Stay healthy and hope the business comes back.
Yeah, thanks, Vinnie. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you.